real health results for their clients and themselves. I'm your host, Brendan Vermeyer, clinical advisor for FDN and director of our tribe's awesome association, where we support a community with ongoing education regarding a variety of clinical and business building topics. This week, I'm super stoked to have my good friend Jenn Malecha on our show. Jenn completed the FDN course back in 2012 and has been kicking butt as a true FDN rock star ever since. So Jenn, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brendan. I'm so excited to be on here and be your first guest for this weekly Real Results show. This is so cool that you guys have put this together. Super excited to share my insights with everybody that's going to be watching us today. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. No better guest to start with. You're a real boss babe and a true FDN rock star. So I'm happy to have you here. So I'd love to talk about a little bit of what prompted you to become an FDN so we can all, everybody listening, get a feel for how you got into all this.
Yeah, well, the better question is why, what didn't prompt me to become an FDN? Because everything prompted me to become an FDN, I feel like. So I'll try to keep this like long story short, essentially. But back in 2012, I, at the time, was a personal trainer and also working in corporate wellness. And at that time, I was struggling with some of my own health issues. So I was always the picture of perfect health according to my blood work and in comparison to most people that I knew, because I was a personal trainer, right? So of course I was healthy, eating healthy and exercising and counting calories and doing all those things that back in the day we were told we were supposed to do. Yep. And despite all of my knowledge and having a degree actually in fitness, nutrition, and health, I was starting to have my own health issues. Like I had seasonal allergies that were just progressively getting worse, where I would get ear infections that would knock me out for weeks or days at a time. I was having more frequent migraines. Like I look back now and I would call it chronic fatigue, but I didn't know what it was then. I just remember, in the afternoon times feeling completely depleted and exhausted and needing to take a nap. And then in the evening times, like I would be falling asleep on the couch at 9 p.m. because I was just so drained from the day. And also with working with my personal training clients, I just was noticing that even though they were doing all of the quote unquote right things like counting calories and exercising, they still weren't achieving their goals. Like a lot of them were hitting plateaus with their weight loss. They were getting sick all the time, like having to cancel appointments with me. And even in the corporate wellness space, I noticed this, too, like we were implementing these strategic employee health improvement plans, but it wasn't really moving the needle. And so, anybody who's watching, they might know who Sean Croxton is. He's one of the, I think, original pioneers in the functional health coaching space. And he was actually one of the original people that went through the FDN course. He was in Reed's very first class. And back in 2012, he was really getting his kind of online business and coaching stuff going. And he did a webinar with Reed that Sean and I actually know each other from college. And I jumped on this webinar and I heard Reed talk about adrenal dysfunction and gut dysfunction and liver dysfunction and how all these pieces of the puzzle kind of connect. And it was just like a light bulb moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I think is going on with me and what's going on with my clients, because there was no other answer. Like, why was I, quote unquote, the healthiest person I knew on paper, perfect blood work, cholesterol, all that kind of stuff, but I felt like crap. And I just didn't feel at home in my own body. So, I came across FDN. It was like all the pieces just fell into place and it all made complete sense. And I was like, I just saw that there was more to health and diet and exercise. Like it really broadened the picture for me on what I needed to be doing for myself and what more I could be doing for my clients, basically.
That's an awesome story. I really appreciate you sharing that. And what's so cool about our community is, everybody you talk to, you're going to hear a similar story with different flavors, whether it was something they went through or a loved one. But, the common denominator always comes down to the people that won't accept everything looks normal. You're fine. It's all in your head. There's nothing wrong with you. No, I don't feel normal. I don't feel optimally healthy. I'm not going to accept that because this is my one life, and I'm going to go chase vibrant health by getting to those root causes. That's the one thing that brings us all together. And it's an amazing community of, go-getter empaths that are willing to put in the work and learn, and then turn around and go educate others to continue the mission of trying to save the world. So I love that. And it's so good that you found it. I have a similar path myself, but ultimately you're here now. You've changed your own health. You're changing clients. So tell us a little bit about your journey back to vibrant health and how that allowed you to help others.
Yeah. So, part of the FDN course, and this is still part of it to my knowledge, is that you had to do some testing on yourself, right? So I immediately jumped in. Like at the time, I didn't have a ton of money. I put it on a credit card. I was like, I have to have this because I just saw that this was going to be the future of where I wanted to go. Like I got into corporate wellness because I thought if I was in corporate wellness, I would be able to help a broader, like have a bigger impact. But what I realized is it actually kind of removed me from having that bigger impact. And the bigger impact that I could have was working with these people one-on-one that were struggling like I was to get real results. And then they in turn could help other people do it. And going through the process myself. So like, it was really cool going through the course. At the time that I went through it, we had to do the BioHealth 205, which is an adrenal and hormone salivary test. We also had to do the BioHealth metabolic profile test, which looks at like liver function, looks at oxidative stress, and then it looks at urinary indican, which can give you some insights about malabsorption and digestion issues, bacteria in the gut, and that kind of stuff. And I also opted to do the stool sample test as well, because when I got to the stool sample module in the course, I was like, oh my God, this is fascinating to me. And what I found was like, I definitely had some adrenal dysfunction going on. I was like in that phase 2 kind of area of adrenal dysfunction. My liver was clogged and I had really high oxidative stress. And then my stool sample test came back and I had H. pylori. And what was really fascinating to me was the clinical correlations going on with my symptoms. So I can't believe I didn't mention this when you asked me how I got into FDN, but right before I found FDN, I was diagnosed with skin cancer at like melanoma at a really young age. I was about 25, 26 at the time. And I had no family history. So like not really any genetic risk factors or predispositions to it. And yes, I live in Southern California, but I'm not like an obsessive tanner. I would say that I wore sunscreen most often when I went out. I used a tanning booth occasionally, like coming out of winter to glean up on the tan, but there wasn't really any big reasons as to why I probably should have had skin cancer at the age of 26. I didn't work outside, or anything like that. And so when I got the results back and I saw that my liver was clogged and I had high oxidative stress, like those are two pretty big factors for cancer. Like if your liver is clogged, you can't, get rid of toxins out of the body. Now I know those toxins can then mutate cells and cause cancer and inflammation and all these things. And on top of that, like the high oxidative stress levels, which is like how fast the body's aging and mutation and damage of cells and everything. I was like, oh, this is probably a big reason why I have skin cancer and nobody else in my family has had it. And like I have risk factors that are low for it. So that was fascinating to me. The adrenal dysfunction totally hit home with why I was tired all the time. And I used to compete for fitness shows. And like, I just over time, like that young of an age, I was having chronic aches and pains too. And I remember working with like my personal trainer who trained me because I just had this chronic like pain that would start at like my mid back and go all the way through like my left IT band all the time. And he would just be like, you're not foam rolling enough and blah, blah, blah. This isn't happening. And my knees would ache. And now I know that because cortisol was dysfunctional, like my pro-inflammatory response and like all these things that I had going on in my body were just exacerbating that inflammation that was causing the aches and pains. So that was interesting. Once I cleaned up inflammation, that all went away. I still run and lift and do all the things that I used to do. And I don't have aches and pains and I'm 10 years older now at this point in time. And then the H. pylori factor too. So I remember going through the modules and Reed talking about how H. pylori correlates with migraines, and I was getting migraines. And then how he talked about it also correlates with dysfunction, I think, at the T7 vertebrae. And that's exactly where I would get that mid back pain at. So once I cleaned up the H. pylori, the migraines went away, and I never have that back pain anymore at all. So I just love that, like, the testing was just so fascinating to me, like being kind of a science geek in a sense and wanting to be a little bit more strategic. It helped me in my own health to really pinpoint those things. And then I was able to, like, through what we learn in the protocols, like I put together these great, protocols, including diet and rest and supplements and all of that stuff. And I would say within a matter of 30 days, I was feeling extremely better. And then over time, as I've just like lived into this FDN type of lifestyle, I feel more like myself and more energetic and lively now than I did at the age of 26. And I'm 36 now, and along that time, like, that's the beginning part of my story. But what I haven't shared yet either is that a couple years ago in 2016, we also found toxic mold in our home. And I was I was on this great path, feeling so well. And then all of a sudden started having all of these hormone issues, like cystic acne. I'd never had acne in my entire life before. I was having like breakthrough periods. Like, I was feeling depressed and anxious, and like, I was doing all the FDN stuff, and I was like, but wait, like something, like I'm still like feeling this way. And so again, but through that FDN like investigative process that I learned, I was able to figure out what was going on with my body, do some retesting, and then, by divine intervention of the universe, opened up the closet door and saw that there was like toxic mold in there, which actually triggered Hashimoto's with me. But I'm so like happy and grateful to be able to say that here I am, less than 2 years later from that. And like my Hashimoto's is in remission. Like, I don't have estrogen dominance anymore. I feel like myself again. But it's like, FDN has helped me personally in so many ways, and my family members. Like, my husband, as through osmosis of just being around me, he's also lost like almost 40 pounds. Like, he found out he was estrogen dominant. And when exercise and dieting weren't working for him anymore, we ran some tests, and he was estrogen dominant, insulin resistant, even though he was like a apparently healthy guy. And he's feeling better than he ever has. And he has an anterior protruding disc, which is a very difficult like area to operate on. Most people have posterior protruding discs, and it's an easier way to access and operate. But with anterior, like, he runs the risk of being impotent with a surgery right now. And he had chronic back pain all the time, where he would come home from business travel and stuff like that and just be laid out for 24 hours straight. And going through the FDN process himself, like, we've been able to control his inflammation, get it down. And now he never has back pain. Like, I can't even tell you the last time that he ever complained about his back or had to lay down or anything like that. Like, it's just been awesome to see how going through this program myself has had a positive impact on his health and some of my other family and friends too.
It's an absolutely amazing story. And that's the beautiful thing is, every FDN client testimonial is equally amazing, where, a lot of clients that maybe they've been to a lot of doctors or specialists, but the difference is, with the FDN methodology, we're not looking for a disease to diagnose and, treat with medication. We're looking for lifestyle, environmental factors that are contributing to metabolic dysfunction, contributing to what we love to call metabolic chaos. And then by identifying these healing opportunities and using this holistic lifestyle model, for example, the mold that you mentioned, no, I've never talked to a medical doctor that acknowledges the existence of mold sickness, when in reality, the mycotoxins that are released by mold, which grows everywhere and can happen to anybody, they studied mycotoxins for biological warfare back in the 1980s, and yet conventional medicine doesn't know anything about or acknowledge it. And as you're saying, and I love the way you illustrated that, of how everything's connected. And that's why we have our comprehensive functional investigation, where we are using objective data with the lab testing. And we're not just looking at one system, we're looking at as many systems as we can. So that way we can really connect those dots, see how it all plays together, see how the gut and the liver is affecting the hormones and so on and so forth. And that's the beauty of our system. And I always love to say too, the word doctor originally comes from the Latin word doctor, which originally means to teach, and I that's kind of what inspired me. My parents would have loved for me to go to medical school, but it's like, well, I really want to help people get optimally healthy, not just prevent them from dying with medication, really. And we need both. But the point is, I always like to kind of show it's like, well, you've got conventional medicine that's that ultimate safety net. And that's great. And then you've got, like your personal trainers, health coaches, nutrition coaches that, they can teach you the basics of how to live a healthy lifestyle, but there's no objective investigation into that client's unique physiology. And so that's where, again, we own that bridge that connects the two. We own it, we dominate it, we've perfected it, where we are using that objective data about what's going on with your body. And it's going to be totally different than that next person. So I love that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that this is, having been in the health and fitness space for a long time, this is the direction that it's really like moving in that I see is there's this evolution of, for the longest time, we've been trying to put people in a box. Like, what is your cluster of symptoms? And let's put you in. So we're going to put you in this box. And that we're finding that that's like a broken method in a lot of ways, because it's not actually helping people get better. And I think that that's actually an approach that we use and not just in the medical world, but in, other areas of life, too. Like I see it, one of my clients is a teacher. And so they try to fit kids in a box when it even comes to like schooling and their needs or whatever. And so there's this evolution that I'm seeing with people want more personalized and customized care in a sense, or attention. And, going back to like my story, and you kind of touched on this, is that the clients that come to me have a similar story too, where they have been told like, oh, everything looks normal, but they feel like something's wrong, or they don't want to be like just stuck with the diagnosis, or they feel overwhelmed by their diagnosis. They're like, great, I've been diagnosed with Hashimoto's. What do I do now? Am I just doomed to, be the result of my diagnosis, or is there something that I can do about it? And what we, like you said, what we do is like, I really feel like I get to educate my clients and help them to advocate for themselves. Like when I've gone through and kind of gone back and surveyed some of my clients about what they liked about the work that we did together, a lot of them mention like they love that I educate them and help them to advocate for themselves, because I'm not here to bash conventional medicine. I think that there's a purpose 100% for doctors. They fit into our world. Like they have a purpose. There's a lot of good that they can do. And I just think that clients themselves need to be more educated about what their options are and what's going on with their body. And then they can go in and have more educated discussions with their doctors about that. And I invite my clients, I'm like, I think that just like it takes what is the phrase? Like it takes a village to raise a child. I think that it also takes like a healthcare team to help somebody get back to health. Like they're going to need a chiropractor. Like I can't do adjustments, or they're going to need a personal trainer. I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. Or they're going to need an acupuncturist, or people that are going to complement the work that we're going to do together. If they have a diagnosis of something, they're on medication, like they're going to need a doctor to oversee and manage those things. And I just encourage them, like, as you start to change your diet and your lifestyle, you want to make sure that you're on a routine, like every 3 months, like going back to your doctor and getting tests done to manage your medications, right? And a client that I recently had come to me is, I think, a perfect example of what we're talking about. She has MS, and she just recently, she turned 60, I think, maybe right around Christmas or right after the holidays or something. And she had gone to she had tried every trial drug. She had neuropathy, her, like restless legs at nighttime. So she wasn't sleeping through the night. When we did her original consultation, her daughter had to sit on the call with us because her brain fog was so bad that her daughter sat there to help facilitate the conversation, to answer questions and make sure she wasn't leaving out any of the details, because she just couldn't remember. And, we wrapped up in the conversation, and I presented my services to her, and she said, well, I need to think about it, which is, you know, warranted. I think that when you're making a decision around your health, it's a big emotional decision. And based on her previous experience, she was just like, well, nothing else has worked. So a little bit hesitant about it also. So she went and thought about it and followed up. And she said, well, I'm going to go, I have an appointment with a functional medicine doctor next week. I want to go do that before I make my decision about you. And I said, well, that's great, but let me just position it this way. Like, do you really need one more diagnosis or one more doctor? Because you've had a lot of that and it hasn't provided you with a solution. The missing piece that you have is the lifestyle factors. Like, and she'd actually tried an AIP diet and had tried some other things in the past that hadn't, quote unquote, worked for her. And I always say, like, when a diet's not working for you, it's not that the diet isn't working. There's something underneath the hood, like other metabolic chaos stuff that's going on, that the diet can't be as effective as it should be. And so she actually really took to heart what I said. She's like, you know what, you're right. This is the biggest piece that I'm missing. So she decided to enroll with me as a client, and we did some of our foundational lab tests, like a hormone adrenal test, a stool sample test, a food sensitivity test. We did that metabolic profile to look at her liver, and she certainly had some healing opportunities that hadn't been addressed. And so then, you know, we put into effect like this very customized strategic plan that included diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation. And I'm happy to report that we're wrapping up our program together. She's sleeping through the night 5 nights a week now. Like,
Awesome.
Her brain fog is completely gone. She's in real estate and she's like crushing it in her job, doing, you know, amazing things. She's got a grandson that's probably like 3 or 4 years old that she's now watching on her own and overnight stays and running around with him. She's out walking with her girlfriends again. She's back at the gym, and her neuropathy has dissipated like 90%, you know, and that was, and she's off a couple of her medications and is dwindling some of the other of them down. And I just feel like so honored to be the person that got to be her guide in that, and to help her get results where, you know, she wasn't able to get them before. And it's not like I had a magic wand and I did anything that was super crazy. It's just, you know, this methodical approach that we have, this investigative process that helps us to see, I think, those underlying, as we calls them, like the underlying healing opportunities where, and like you mentioned before, it's like we're working on all systems of the body. Like, we're coaching up all the systems. Like, I tell my clients that all the time. Like, when I put together their supplement protocols, I'm like, you know, this is kind of the reason why I think these supplements would work good for you, because they're going to mostly impact the digestive system. But the reality is that the nutrients in them are actually going to spread across and help with all these different other areas too. And talking about how, like, you know, when you work on your diet, that's also going to positively impact your sleep. And when you improve your sleep, that's going to positively impact, like, it's going to help you get rid of cravings and other things that are going on. And, you know, when you're working on reducing stress, like, that helps, you know, it's all this, like, it's this cycle of stuff. It's all just so connected. Like, I actually wrote a blog that's coming out tomorrow about it. And remember that song as a kid where you're like, your hip bone's connected to your leg bone and your leg bone's connected to your knee bone. And then you like wiggle your bones or whatever. I'm like, it's so funny that we learned that song as a kid, which is a perfect metaphor for what we're talking about, because it really shows you how the body is connected. Like, our bones are connected, our muscles are connected, our tendons, like all these systems of the body. And we've just kind of gotten away from that. We need to get back to that, I think. And that's what we help our clients really see, is that there's not, you know, a singular approach isn't going to work. And a lot of my people have done paleo, they've done Whole30, they've done keto, they've done AIP, and they're like, I got little to no results. I still feel like crap. Well, that's because they're like trying one thing and working on one central thing. And that's not how it works. There's multiple pieces of the puzzle that we have to address, you know?
Absolutely. Well, and that's kind of the big thing. Like, obviously there's an absolute necessity for medication and surgery at times, but it is also a very reductionistic approach. And that's great at times, but it's such an isolated, precise intervention. And when we're dealing with a chronic disease epidemic that is truly like a holistic crisis where we have to take the whole body, all of the cells, not just, oh, we'll take this one medication that's going to modulate this one pathway. No, we got to reboot the whole dang system. And the only
Yep.
way to do that is with a holistic system like diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation. But even still, just being a holistic health coach isn't quite enough. We've got to get that objective data to know what's going on with their unique bodies. So that's why there is nothing like the FDN methodology. So,
Yeah.
you've definitely managed to make a full career out of it, and you love what you do, I think.
I do. I mean, it's cool. Like I have clients, all over the world. So when I transitioned out, like one of the other things that was really attractive to me about FDN was I wanted to work for myself. I was tired of working for other people. My husband and I love to travel all over the world, and I wanted to have a larger impact. Was something I said earlier. And I have clients in Australia. I live in San Diego. I have clients in Australia. I have a couple clients in London, and I have some clients in Canada. And I've worked with people in Malta. Like Malta was an island I'd never even heard of until I had this client come to me. And I just think that that's I get to have this huge impact with people all over the place, and I can help them no matter where I am, which is really awesome. And you're right, like that testing aspect, because I've had clients come to me and say like, well, I've worked with health coaches before. I've done candida cleanses. I've done liver detoxes. And I'm like, yeah, but you're still like, I educate them about candida, and I'm like, candida is usually an opportunistic organism. There's something else that's going on. So you might have cleaned up the candida, but whatever was causing the candida or contributing to candida in the first place is probably still there, which is why after you did the candida cleanse, your symptomology like came back, or you felt like crap or gained the weight or whatever happened. And they're like, oh my gosh, that totally makes sense. Like once they see it. And then when we have the test results and they can actually see it on paper too, it's so like motivating for them. It heightens their level of commitment to actually like do the work also, which I think is really important. And, I always say that when people ask me what I do, I'm like, well, I'm somewhere in between like a health coach and a naturopath. Like I can't diagnose and I can't treat anything specifically, and I can't write prescriptions, but we use a lot of that same testing. And I'm more than a health coach because I do the testing. So we're like kind of in this in-between space. And we're just using that data to educate the person and to like guide, what would be best for them in their life. Like, how can they resolve some of these issues? And that educational piece is just so incredible. I know that it has been for me, and all of the clients that I've been fortunate to work with, like hundreds of them at this point in time. It's super cool. So.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't medicate, we educate, kind of, and I just still think about getting back to the root meaning of the original word of doctor, to teach. We cater the educational experience based on objective data. It's like, to me, that's what it's all about. And the proof is in the pudding, as they say,
Yes, it is.
Well, awesome. I know we're starting to get to the end of time here, but where can people find you? How can they get in touch? Where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, so my brand is called the Holistic Health Boss with a W, so WHOL, like Whole Foods, I always say. So I have a website, holistichealthboss.com, or I have a Facebook page at Holistic Health Boss, and Instagram at Holistic Health Boss are the places that you can find me. And I love, messaging with people and chatting. So feel free to reach out to me in any of those places.
Perfect. I love it. Is there any piece of advice that you'd like to give to any, health coaches or health related professionals who might be watching us right now that might be kind of interested in all this?
Yeah, I think that, if you want to set yourself apart from the rest and you're trying to figure out how to do that, because the fitness and health industry is booming right now. Like you and I are about to go to PaleoFX and just see how big this is in a couple of weeks, I know. And this is one of the ways that you differentiate yourself from others, is having this next level piece of education. And that's like when people come to me and clients come to me and they have consultations, they've worked with other health coaches. When we talk, they're really looking for the lab testing, like, because they know that there's something going on. They're like, how do I get that information? Like, where are the resources and the tools for that? And so this is how you can like separate yourself from the rest of the competition that's out there. And I'll tell you that my business, I've been in business for a couple of years now. And my business, I have this online presence and everything, but honestly, like my business is 95% word of mouth referral, because my clients are getting results and then they're sharing with their family and their friends, and they're constantly referring people to me, their colleagues. And so I do get clients like straight off of, you know, Instagram or YouTube or something like that. But the rest of them are like 95% of them are that word of mouth referral, because, you know, as Reed taught us through the course, is that we're filling the needs gap. We're the last person that somebody needs to see to like get better. And I just think that's so important. And I like to say that we're in the business of making the impossible possible. So when people out there are feeling like that it's impossible, they're never going to feel better, like we are able to turn it around. And I think that that is just a magical thing that we get to do. So it's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so true. I love that, making the impossible possible. Well, that's
you can
awesome.
steal it.
Yeah, you know, I might have to. And you're exactly right. You know, the results speak for themselves, and people get excited, they share. So yeah, before you know it, with this kind of training, you just get referrals left and right. So it's amazing. Well, awesome. Jenn, thank you so much for being on our show today to share insights with others about how to get real long-term sustainable health results for clients, and obviously yourself that you went through. So, you know, with all this said, I think this is amazing. And for those that are, you know, ready to dig deeper and become a true health detective, certainly you can reach out. You can always to decide if this is a venture that you want to take on. You can actually meet with an FDN course counselor, ask as many questions as you want to learn more about what the course entails. So you can actually go to functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com/counselor, or you can even enroll in the course. And certainly to those that might be struggling with their health, you can find an FDN practitioner and find that true health detective that is going to be able to help you get to those, you know, root cause healing opportunities for those made possible results. But Jenn, thank you so much. This was a great way to kick off our series. So thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back every single Wednesday, same time, same place, on the FDN Facebook page here at 7 p.m. Central, or 5 if you're on the West Coast, 8 if you're on the East Coast, or wherever you are in the world. But that's the beautiful thing. No matter where you are in the world, we can help you, and you can kind of join the ranks and have an equally prosperous career. So we'll see you guys next week. And Jenn, I can't wait to hang out with you at Paleo FX.
Me too. See you there.
All right.
Bye, guys.
See ya.